Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. It's nice to see so many of you here early this morning in Davos for the official launch of the Business for Land Champions Council. My name is Charlotte Kahn, I'm a journalist and moderator, and I'm delighted to be guiding today's conversations. We are gathered around a subject that is both fundamental and urgent. Land underpins half of our global GDP. And yet, 40% of the world's land is already degraded. There are economic risks. There are supply chain risks. There are also geopolitical risks. So this session marks the launch of a new kind of private sector leadership under the UNCCD, one that moves beyond individual commitments towards collective advocacy, investment and action on the road to COP17 and beyond. So to open this session, it's our honor to welcome Dr. Yasmin Fouad, Executive Secretary of the UNCCD, to share the vision behind this initiative. Under a warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm morning for everyone, even when we have this snow. But it's really, I'm glad that I was able to make it to Davos. My gratitude first would go to the COP16 president and Dr. Osama for joining us today. My gratitude would also go in appreciation to the Deputy Minister of Environment for Mongolia, the incoming COP17 president, and to everyone who was able to make it today to our Business Council. As you have give a very quick overview, in 2024, in January, we were in Davos. And it was that discussion that took place around, first, how much do we need to invest in land? Land that provides us with food, with water. It's the basis for any development. It's there for construction. Even the vast discussion about renewable energy, always, and most of them, happens on land. And for that reason, we started to calculate. And we found that we need around 500 billion USD each year in order to be able to restore land. And we found out a very interesting piece of information, because there is a cost for the inaction, but there is a huge revenue that would come with an action. For each dollar that would be spent on land, it would generate around $30 in revenue. And these are the figures that we were able to get in conjunction between science and economics. And from that, the narrative started to change. Land degradation, drought resilience, and desertification are no more environmental issues and challenges as being perceived when the UNCCD was first born. They started to be at the heart of the economy, of countries and their GDP, and how much they're able to accelerate action. And because we knew the story, we knew that story from other global environmental challenges, that the finance is not sufficient and would not be enough, even if we are relying on whatever we get from the developed countries, whatever the domestic finances would include in the developing countries, that would not be enough. Because using the land would also rely on the people, and the private sector has a big role to play. And in January 2024, here in Davos, the COP16 presidency with the UNCCD has launched the Business for Land initiative. And how that is different and why we are gathered here today. That is different because 197 parties to the UNCCD process has included the business for land in the intergovernmental decision, which would mean that the Business for Land initiative is the only official and formal private sector platform out of the Rio conventions from climate change and biodiversity that actually now exists. But we cannot do it alone. And from Davos, from January 2024, with the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, with the endless effort that has been put by my colleagues from the Secretariat, as well as you here, we were able to come to this moment. In January 2026, we are announcing the Championship Council with the participation of a large number of private sector. And this is not a voluntary contribution. It's not part of the corporate social responsibility. It's the understanding of how much from the private sector engagement we are able to see the added value of sustaining land and restoring land for the benefit of sustaining our own future and our own career in whatever sector we're talking about. Call it agrobiodiversity, call it food, call it beverage, call it energy, call it consultancy, call it construction, whatever you name it, would still be related to how much land we're able to keep around the world. This is the second milestone. The third one that we will be walking together throughout this journey. And I promise each and everyone around this that this will not continue to be a platform that would only talk without action. And to make action, we need to have a new narrative around the financial architecture, a new narrative on how to risk the capital and the investment that would come from the private sector in their area. And that is another key milestone that we will be working with the IFIs and with multilateral development banks on the way to Ulaanbaatar. I thank you all. I thank you, Charlotte, very much for the excellent moderation that you will be giving, and it will be very tight for you. But I thank every, we have very little time. I thank each and every single one who had got that step in joining us in the Championship Council. I thank from the very bottom of my heart, Dr. Osama Al-Faqih, Deputy Minister for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for putting all the effort, he and his team, and he has been reading every single paper that is in that pot. I assure you, I have been receiving phone calls from him. We need to put that, we need to keep a space for that, we need to put that, we don't need to finish very quickly just to announce something. I can assure you this really happened. So thank you for the passion and for the inspiration you give to all of us at the UNCCD, Dr. Osama. And I like really to welcome the Deputy Minister of Environment for joining us today. And you can rely on us as the UNCCD, but on all the magnificent and significant figures around the table from the private sector, that we will make Ulaanbaatar a moment for the world to remember. Thank you all very much. And definitely thank you to Andrew Hoffman and to John Host for hosting us in Intent here. Thank you. Charlotte, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fouad, and thank you for presenting the size and scope of the challenge with so much clarity and conviction as well. And for ensuring that we do understand here that land protection is strategic, and is strategic to business and the private sector too, of course. Thank you very much for that. So we are now going to move to the political leadership anchoring this council. As for the first time in the history of the UNCCD, as you pointed out, Dr. Fouad, business has been formally connected to the COP presidency. A very strong signal that implementation and ambition must now move together indeed. So it's our pleasure now to welcome Dr. Osama Al-Faqih, who's Deputy Minister of Environment of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, representing the COP16 presidency and serving as the inaugural chair of the Business for Land Champions Council. Dr. Osama, welcome.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Yasemin and UNCCD team for organizing this event. And we thank COP17 incoming presidency for being here to really maintain the momentum, and all the representative of the business community and other stakeholders to really taking the time and effort to be here today in Davos despite your very busy schedule. And I think Dr. Yasemin very eloquently put the case of the need to restore land and how much it costs to restore land. But I think I'm going to talk about the cost of inaction, the cost of business as usual. We don't afford to not to act. Before we talk about even restoring, we are degrading 100 million hectares every year. And this is because of business as usual. So we need to shift to business unusual. And we need to make the business unusual usual. We have to mainstream sustainable land management and restoration. Because in the last 500 years, humanity managed to degrade around 2 billion hectares. Now, you look to the official figures, you find it between 1.5 billion to 1.8. So you say, what Dr. Sam is talking about, from where he came up with the 2 billion? Well, guess what? Only 55% of the land mass is being reported. So just, a very simple extrapolation, even with conservative estimates, we have at least 2 billion hectares of degraded land because 45% of the land is not being reported. So we don't know much about it. But there are reports out there. There are few, but they're alarming. And they estimate by 2050, we will be having between 5 to 6 billion hectares of degraded land. And that's scary because in 25 short years, we will be degrading double the area that has been degraded in the last 500 years. This thing is not a legacy that this generation would like to leave to future generation. I don't think anyone in the room would like to look to their grandchildren in the eye and say, this is the legacy that we left to you and we are proud of that. No, I don't think that is the moment that we want to see. And that's why we are here in this room. Because here we really have to make the decision which direction we're going to do. We're going to continue our business, and the statistics out there, the reports out there, we have degraded around 450 million hectares of forest since 1990, and the reports out there. So the impact on biodiversity is huge. The impact on climate is huge. 24% of greenhouse gas emissions are associated with land degradation and agriculture and other land use. And that's second only to energy, which is 25%, and even exceeding transportation, which is 14%. So really, it is not really making the headlines. It is creeping like a cancer, because I have never seen anybody who are more eloquently about our attitude to land like Mr. Guterres, who said very wisely, we live on land, we live off land, and we treat it like dirt. Although soil, in my opinion, is one of the most magical substances on earth, because in soil, you can see life emanating in front of your eyes. You can see how the seeds really, and the seeds are really, with the water and the seed are the real secret of life. You can see it emanating in your life. But we took it for granted somehow. If a miracle happens every day, it ceases to become a miracle somehow. But you will always realize it's a miracle when it's too late, when you lose it. And we don't want to come to that point. And we can do it with you, and we cannot do it without you. The business community, and I think Dr. Yasemin mentioned, that half of the GDP or Charlotte that depends on land. the agribusiness, the food business, fashion business, the construction, mining, and you can go on and on. To again, of course, it is not surprising because our fresh water is on land, our farms on land, our forests on land, our cities on land, our villages on land, our roads are on land, we live on land. We are terrestrial species. And the last thing we want to do is to care about things except our terrestrial habitat. You know, by restoring 15% of the priority lands, IUCN said we can save 60% of the red list of endangered species. Only 15% if we scope it properly. So I can go on and on on that. So we cannot afford not to act. We need to really have a major shift in our attitude toward land and how to do really business on land. Otherwise, the consequences are dire. And of course, $500 billion a year is too much. That's about $2.5 trillion, give or take, by 2030. But guess what? By 2030, we would be spending $35 trillion in harmful subsidies. This is according to UNEP. $7 trillion every year are spent. So I don't think we need really to secure money or financial sources. I think we need to redesign our spending, rethink how can we spend our existing money. I don't think we need any additional money. And the good news is that by investing in land, we will win in food security. We will win in water security because all fresh water exists on land. 40% of the clouds comes from the vegetation cover. If we lose the vegetation cover, rain will not be a blessing but a curse because it will wash away the fertile soil and go back to the ocean because it's the vegetation that captures the rain like a sponge. And then we will win in climate resilience as well because the amount of carbon stored in soil and vegetation is 300% the carbon in the atmosphere. So there is no loss, no losing here. There is always win-win, and we win in socioeconomics. 3 billion people are impacted by land degradation. Now, you know, we have nice food here, and the bad news is the orange now, we have the same orange, we ate it, but it's not the same nutrition that is 30 years ago. It is much less nutrient. Even the most wealthiest families sitting there are impacted by land degradation. They are getting less nutrient fruits and food because land is degrading there. And land degradation in one place is higher food prices than another place. Of course, when land degrades, life is disrupted, migration happened, conflicts emanate, and of course, land degradation and drought altogether are very linked. So we in COP16 presidency, we came to a very simple reality that we cannot do it without the private sector. And we are very glad that we have a strong presence of the private sector in COP16. And we need to continue the journey. We need to mainstream sustainable land management. We need to mainstream land restoration because we don't have other choice. Other choices, you know, are easy to do, but it's not about doing the easy thing. It's about doing the right thing. This is a decision about doing the right thing. And the right thing is to rethink how we manage land. The last thing, we need to always have the linkages between land, social well-being, food security, water security, and biodiversity and climate resilience always there. Yes, the degradation is very slow, is hard to monitor. We need to do a lot of investment in the science really to really track land degradation properly and give us the reports that we need to guide our decisions. But we need to be mindful that it's happening, and it's happening right in front of our eyes. So again, this is a historical moment, the launch of the Business for Land Council. But the Business for Land Council and all of that will only be ambitions and dreams without you, the business community, really translating this into action on the ground. And I have here Mongolia. We need to keep the momentum. We'd like to see you all in Ulaanbaatar in August. So Mongolia did it earlier, so we don't have this crowded, agenda. After October, November, December becomes really crazy when it comes to the international agenda. So really, thank you for being here. We would like you to translate the ambitions of the Business for Land Council into reality. And then we wish few years from now, we look back to this moment and we said, yes, back in Davos that day, that snowy day in January, we made a difference. And we made a historical decision to change our attitude to land and to change the future of our children and grandchildren to the better, so that we have a better legacy to leave to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Osama. Thank you so much. You've shared some very stark figures with us here. In fact, you mentioned the word scary, and I'm sure we'll all agree here in this room. And we also are getting the sense, of course, that we are at crossroads. Now is the time. Let's do it for our grandchildren, as you mentioned. Okay, so next we're going to get very practical now, as we are going to turn to what the Champions Council is here to deliver, how it will operate and where it is heading. So to walk us through this, it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Hutan Basiri, who is Innovative Financing and Partnerships Manager at the Global Mechanism of the UNCCD. So please welcome him very warmly here. Hutan, over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So we've heard this morning from our Executive Secretary, Yasmin Fuad. We've heard from Dr. Osama on the vision for Business for Land and the vision for the Champions Council. So I'm here, as Charlotte said, to give you a little bit more practical information about what the council will do, how it will do it, and crucially, who are the people sitting around the table on the council who will take these activities forward. So in short, the Business for Land Champions Council is designed to be the advocacy body for the Business for Land initiative, to be the voice of the Business for Land initiative. We have gathered visionary leaders, 10 visionary leaders, to be the voice for land restoration, to speak about the issue, and to more crucially, to advocate for other companies, policymakers to make changes, to make a more friendly business environment for land restoration, to incite businesses to make changes, and to really help us drive the initiative forward. So the United Nations and governments are not businesses, right? We can talk about the importance of land restoration. We can talk about the economic costs. We can talk about how it's important for social change to be cognizant of businesses' impact on land, on water sustainability. But we know very little, really, what it's like to be in a business and to face these challenges on a day-to-day basis and to be confronted with the decisions that businesses have to make every day when they're confronted with land issues, with sustainability issues, with water issues. And that's really why we've put together the Business for Land Champions Council to help us really understand these points. When a CEO talks to another CEO about how restoring land improved their bottom line, how it helped them protect their value chain, how it made them stronger, that conversation matters. When Olam speaks to another food company, when LVMH speaks to another fashion company, those are the conversations that incite change. Those are the conversations that we are trying to trigger with this council. So with that, the Business for Land Champions Council really has 3 primary objectives. The first is advocacy. So we would like, we will work with our champions to advocate for the role of business in land restoration and water sustainability, and to really talk about the fact that land restoration is an investment. It's not a cost. It's a decision that you make for your business to be profitable down the line in the future. We would also like our Business for Land champions, to be innovators. Now, we didn't select these champions just randomly. The companies and the leaders that we have selected are already visionaries in the area of land restoration and water sustainability. They are doing a lot within their companies to drive these issues forward. Working with them, we are hoping that they will test new initiatives, test new ideas, demonstrate that land restoration, water sustainability can be profitable, and to then really lobby to get other businesses to also take on these practices and also implement these innovations that they are implementing. And the third area is influence. So at UNCCD, being a convention, we have access to governments, we have access to policymakers. We will connect our Business for Land champions to these policymakers so that they can talk about the changes that they are making, so they can lobby for policies that are more land friendly, so that they can work to make a more lobby to make for governments and for the world to put together a more enabling environment for land. So we really have these three objectives that we would like our champions to fulfill. But enough of that. So who exactly are these champions? So let me tell you. And okay, so here we have the list of all of our champions who have joined the Champions Council. So I will just go through them and name them one by one, so you can be familiar with them. And we are on a first name basis, so I will use their first name. So we have Benedict, who's the founder of Guten Basel. It's working in agriculture. We have Byamba, who's the vice chair of the Business Council of Mongolia, and also is working in renewable energy in the companies that he is involved with. We have Birgit, the co-founder of Patagonia Provisions and CEO of B. Cameron Consulting, an agriculture. Oh, okay, it's back. An agricultural consulting company. David Canassa, the executive director of Reservas Votorantim, an environmental services company in Brazil. Alexandre Campelli from LVMH. Matthew Dondain, managing director of Nexira. Lorenzo Fatebene from Ernst & Young. Julie Green from Olam Group, Adrienne, the co-founder of Genesis Soil Health, and Maria Luisa, the executive vice president of sustainability at Suzano. So we have 10 champions working across all 5 continents in 8 industries, right? So it's global. It's influential, and these are the people that we will be working with to bring about the changes that we want to see. So one final word then on what the roadmap for the Business for Land Champions Council running up to COP17 in Mongolia. So today is when the journey begins. We are launching the Champions Council, and a lot of activity, a lot of our lobbying, a lot of our efforts will really gain momentum from today. Starting today, we will work with all of these champions to come up with an individualized advocacy plan where we will identify events that they can speak at to lobby for us. We will think about how they can work within their industry, within their sector, to be the voice of land, and we will work together, to roll those initiatives out. So you will start to see our champions speaking at global events. You're seeing them here. You'll see 5 of them later. You will see them, at other events, at COPs. You will see them at major economic gatherings. It is our vision, that they will be visible, that they will be out there, and they will be advocating, for businesses and land restoration and water sustainability. We will be working with them to mobilize businesses. It is our goal for other companies, of course, to join the Business for Land initiative. If you're a company here and you are not part of Business for Land, you can join the Business for Land initiative by signing our call to action, which really commits you to making some changes within your company to be more sustainable and more cognizant of your impact on land. And we will work with you to identify changes that you can make. We will give you visibility as part of the Business for Land initiative as well. This all culminates, of course, at COP17 in Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia, where we will be having a Business for Land forum where we will connect businesses with governments, with multilateral banks, with policymakers, and we will showcase all of the changes that businesses have been making in this year and running forward. And from there, we hope the initiative will gain more momentum and really take off and blossom into the future. So with that, I want to stop there. That's the vision, that's the plan, that's our goal. But it would really be good, and we're here today because we want you to hear from our champions. So with that, I will stop and I will hand it back to you, Charlotte, to invite up the champions for a conversation with them.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Hutan. And let's have a round of applause for our champions, please, to thank them for their commitment. And let's meet them and hear them, shall we? And next, we're going to have a panel with leaders who have chosen to engage not only with their companies, but also across sectors and with policymakers indeed. And they are going to share thoughts on how to strengthen land stewardship within the business sector to restore 1.5 billion hectares of land. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Bayan Jagal Biambasai Khan, who's Vice Chair of the Business Council of Mongolia. The round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Mathieu Dondin, who's CEO at Nexira. Lorenzo Fatibene, who's Global Business Transformation Leader and Global Sustainable Insurance Leader at EY. Adrienne de Malray, who's co-founder at Genesis Soil Health. And Judy Green, Chief Sustainability Officer at Olam Agri. Please come and join us here. Yes, let's have some encouragement for our founding champions. Thank you very much. So welcome to all of you. Let's get started, because you will have noticed that we are running behind the schedule here. So let's start with a question to Mathieu. Once he's sat down, there you go. It's quite a small space here on this side of the room. Okay, so yes, Mathieu first. Nexira is a world leader in natural ingredients and botanical extracts. And we'd like to know what motivated you to join the Champions Council. Here's a microphone.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to thank UNCCD for giving us the opportunity to join. There are several reasons why we thought it would make sense to be part of a Business for Land Council. First of all, we think that the name is actually very straight to the point, Business for Land, B4L. And land is really crucial to our activity. That's very obvious for business continuity. It's very simple, and I wanted to highlight that first. Then one thing that was very important and key for us is that we believe that the private sector, you all mentioned it, needs to be involved, and more especially, talking about Nexira, small and medium-sized companies. Very often we speak about large corporations, but small companies that are actually very active on the ground and have been active for decades, which is our case, can be good to carry some messages and to hear some feedback and to discuss. So just to maybe illustrate our case, which is the one of Nexira, you mentioned that we do natural food ingredients. And our specialty ingredient, which we've been working on for decades, is called acacia gum arabic, which grows in very, I would say, fragile areas in the Sahelian countries of Africa, very dry land and desertic areas. And there is a huge potential to develop this industry. And currently, sometimes it's, I would say, challenged because we're talking about some countries that are facing geopolitical major risks, if we could say. So we believe that it was good for Nexira to join, and maybe for UNCCD and in general to hear what could be developed through this ingredient, and how for Nexira, which relies on dry lands, we could, improve maybe the quality of the land and mitigate the supply risks. How we could also go beyond sometime the reporting, the KPIs, all the things that are required and that are, of course, needed, but that are slowing us down and that are maybe not so realistic sometimes. There is a huge gap between what we are doing in some Western worlds and what is being done in some areas. So pragmatism and reality is good, especially for people who are investing. Otherwise, I think that a lot of investments would not happen if we are constantly putting some very strict compliance and reporting, and to align everyone, whether it's the private sector, the public sector, political, NGOs, it's important. And also, which I will use as a quick example, to scale up some projects that are potentially good to feed. It's something we started 15 years ago with an NGO called SOS Sahel, and it started with a very small area in Chad, and today we are talking about more than 200 villages that could be expanding the region, dozens of thousands of hectares that can be restored and that can be replanted of acacia trees. So those small pilots could be, developed and expanded in multiple areas, and that would go into this huge land restoration that could be happening in Africa. So I was trying to use that as an illustration.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mathieu. What we are hearing this is that when we are talking about business for land, it's any business, including SMEs. And I think that's a very valid and important point here. And you've shared some great pointers here as to how you can start small. In fact, do start small. And that's how you can learn and scale up. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so next we are going to speak to Biamba Saikan, Mr. Biamba Saikan, who's speaking as the Vice Chair of the Business Council of Mongolia. So we'd like to know, how is BCM working with its members to turn Mongolia's COP17 presidency into concrete business action on land restoration and drought resilience?
Thank you, Charlotte, and Yasmin, Dr. Sama, Minister Muhtamer, again, fellow champions and everyone here. Very happy to be back in Davos, and this time wearing the hat of UNCCD, Business for Land Champions. So the Business Council, we are a association that comprises of around 150, 200 companies that are active in Mongolia, right? So I'm a member of the council, and I also serve at the board. And we have companies anywhere from finance to Kashmir to renewable energy to mining, right, as members. And the BCM has been working very closely with Hotan and the UNCCD team and really the past year, right? So we organized a number of interesting events which create a platform for companies to come and start on one side, learn and build awareness, right? And on the other side, to see how we can bring this platform for businesses to understand and also make better business decisions, right? And Mongolia is blessed with a lot of land, if you would ask me, right? So what is Mongolia's advantage? I would say it's land. We are landlocked, but we have lots of land. And we are blessed with a lot of resources above ground, which is renewable energy resources, one of the best solar and wind resources anywhere. And then we also have a lot of resources underneath, right? And then agriculture is a very important aspect of our living and has been. So when you deal with mining businesses, and I have dealt with some in the past, there is a saying, what is not grown, that it is mined, right? So, but if you look at it, what's grown, what's mined, it's always land is the main issue, and land degradation is a problem. And we have a lot of mining companies in Mongolia that are doing good business on one side, that have resources, and that actually want to do things, right? So I think BCM is a good platform to bring those together. And then, as we were talking this morning, innovative solutions, right? So bring in the finance, bring in the companies who have the resources, and bring in the companies who have the technology. I think we can do wonders, I think, over the next decade or so, right? And we are very happy to be part of the Business for Land. And the BCM and the UNCCD have signed an agreement to, again, work together to for the next 3 years, really, to, again, champion and to advocate for Business for Land. And I really hope that my involvement would bring in the energy businesses, the mining companies. And then we have a thing called Kashmir. So I'm wearing Kashmir, right? And then how do you basically connect this with the sustainability, the supply chain, with the sustainability and livelihood of the person who is actually herding the goats, right? So I think that's also something that is very interesting. And then we have very interesting players that we're working with, Sustainable Fiber Alliance and the big LVMHs of the world that depend on good quality cashmere. So I think livelihoods is an important aspect. And that's where I think the BCM and the companies, and then obviously all the activities that we plan to do over the next few years will focus on. So again, very happy to be here. I think we can make an impact, and we bring in the platform and then creating a bigger platform. And that's what, again, B4L Champions is for me.
Thank you so very much for that. There again, some very impressive examples of how you can create a very powerful platform for change that engages the private sector. And what you are also mentioning here, which is very important, is how land restoration and optimization, I'm tempted to say, is also a way to empower local communities and create economic prospects. So thank you so very much for that. Lorenzo, now, I'd like to know what drew you to join the Champions Council and how you envision translating that commitment into concrete actions on land stewardship.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, thanks the UNCCD for inviting me to the panel. Thanks everyone. Thanks Intent for supporting the initiatives. I'm pretty excited to join this group and initiatives. I'm the Global Sustainable Insurance for EY, so I'll bring my expertise particularly into the field, but I will not be alone. You know, we're quite a big company. We are about 400,000 people across 150 countries, and we do work a lot in terms of sustainability. Last year we had 25 projects with 25,000 clients on sustainability, and we really focus on having impactful and positive initiatives around different areas. So on one side, we support entrepreneurs across the globe, and because they're very vital to what they can do. I remember, at the last COP I was there, and we rewarded 5 local entrepreneurs, and what they did in terms of land restoration and agriculture was impressive. So that's one area. The other is we really bring private and public sector to work together, because only working together they can achieve, initiatives and projects that no one could do it alone. And last year we managed 350 projects with 55 different clients and partners. So that's another area where we can be impactful. And finally, all of this is supported also by our corporate policy, where all of us spend time, dedicate time to support local and global initiatives. And with so many people in so many countries, we can do a lot. In terms of specific on my, as I said, I will look into the insurance angle. Now that's the moment where everyone revert to the mobile because insurance is not exciting. And well, but the point is, insurance is really the glue between the investment and the projects. It's really the tool to de-risking the investment and ensure that projects get positive results and outcome. So there are a number of initiatives that can be taken. I discussed with the UNCCD. There are particularly two angles. One is more at the local level, so bringing security to the farmers and the small, medium company operating there, farmers, breeders, leveraging the structure that already exists. Thankfully, there are already local companies providing insurance to the farmers. And many of them are mutual companies. Mutuals are a particular type of insurance company where the customers are the stakeholders of the company. So they're really dedicated. Profit is not the key driver for them. The key driver is really satisfying their stakeholder and customers. So they're really dedicated. They spend a lot. They produce a lot. The ambition there is to scale up what they can provide and ensure that every company can get insurance. The other topic, and then I will close, it's more ambitious. We heard about the financial structure, and it might be true that we don't need more money, as Dr. Osama said, but we need to kind of secure and ensure that the money that is proposed is then get delivered. And that's kind of covering this mezzanine tranche, ensuring, de-risking projects, particularly on the political risk, economic risk, and, all these type of not really local or climate, but really business risk are covered. That's more ambitious, very difficult, but, we're here to look at, the big things.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. You've actually managed to make insurance sound very exciting indeed for its potential to unlock the full value of your ecosystem and the platform you have at EY in particular. Okay, so next we're going to hear from you, Julie Green. Since Olam Agri operates at the heart of land-dependent global value chains. So from your perspective, what does land stewardship actually look like in practice?
Thank you, and thank you. It's really an honor to be here and to have this opportunity and platform to champion our terrestrial habitat. We were, hearing how many millions of hectares are being degraded each year from Mr. Deputy Minister. As I understand, it's an area the size of Nicaragua or Greece that we're losing, and yet to feed the world by 2050, we need 2 more Indias. Of land at the way that things are currently and the way the population is growing currently. So the urgency is really there. But as a business, the question is, how does that urgency for the world translate into a business case, as well as what is our intersection with the farmers, with the suppliers? How can we actually make that difference? So Olam Agri, we buy, we trade, do a little bit of farming, but really more sourcing of raw materials like wheat, soy, cotton, and others all around the world. And I would roughly group our suppliers into smallholders and large farmers. And that really implies very different entry points and needs for land stewardship. In my experience leading sustainability, my personal experience was, a couple of decades working on the ground in projects. The needs are a combination of the knowledge, the access to the tools, and identifying that right package of practices. So the first thing that we did as a company when we really decided to emphasize land, not just good agricultural practices and livelihoods, which is still very important, but the really recognizing the soil and land side, is harness our traceability tools. So we have information about our farmers, where they're from, that we can geolocate them. And we can layer on top of that data which they as smallholders may not be able to access, but we can. So looking at a combination of canopy cover loss, of NDVI, of soil moisture, and stuff, harnessing satellite tools, and then combining that with samples taken from field staff on the ground, we were able to identify across a range of supply chains, rice, sesame, from Nigeria to India to Thailand, areas that were degrading, but also areas that were regenerating among our farmers. So an interesting thing there is that it helped us to figure out where to focus, but also if they're doing well, what are they doing differently? What is that small farmer doing differently? So the first thing was really identifying. Next, supporting farmers to be able to measure and their soil health. And then finally, translating this into a package of practices that looks both at the physical, the nutrient aspects. Is it a question of soil erosion control, of cover crops, getting, of course, almost everywhere it's getting more organic matter back into the soil. But is it also a question of culture? Who and when can do what sorts of practices? Labor flows and availability. So tailoring those practices that we support to the local context has been really critical for supporting smallholder farmers. I know time is short. Maybe I'll have a chance to say something about large farmers later.
Unfortunately not, I can tell you already, because we are running very late here. But you've made a very strong case for the need before action to have all the information you need, all the data you need to act in the right places. So thank you so very much for that. Okay, so we're going to dive even deeper into what it looks like in practice with you, Adrienne, because Genesis Soil Health, the company you co-founded, works directly at the soil level, where land degradation and restoration are most tangible. So what drew you to the Champions Council? And how do you see, and why do you see business leadership as critical to scale all of this up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to give me the opportunity to be here. Thanks to the UNCCD and Intent. When I see this meeting, you see it's an example of all the progress we have made since 7 years when we set the company, but against the land degradation. 7 years ago, we began the company with a really simple idea. It's nobody want to degrade land just because they want it. It's because a lack of knowledge. Nobody knows when they are degraded land and they need to have better information. So Genesis is a MRV tool. It's really like that. It's measure, report, and verify, but it's focused on land only. That's the beginning of the story. But after, you have to convince the private sector that they are linked to the land. And they were not, absolutely not. When we were talking about our activity 7 years ago, the answer was, okay, you love earthworm. No, I'm not loving earthworms. That's not the point. Okay, you are working for the food sector. I'm not working only for the food sector. I'm working with many sectors. And I think that one of my first victory in this business was when another champions, they are not here, but it's LVMH, when they told me, okay, Adrienne, we have understand something. We are a big farm. LVMH is only a big farm. And that's right, it's a big farm because more than 70% of their sourcing is linked to the land. Okay, so food, it's an evidence. After textile, cosmetics, but habitats is the same. And so we have to engage all the private sector on these topics. And why I want to join this, because we work with the UNCCD since a long time, but because if we need the private sectors, we need trust. And if we want trust, we need rules and clear rules on how we measure soil health, on how we report on progress. And if we want to reward progress, we need again real rules and reliable rules on soil. So that's really important to merge private sectors and public sector together. We need private sector for the money, I think, but you need the public sector to have a fair market on these topics.
Well, thank you so very much for that once again. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we don't have time for a second round of questions, but a big round of applause, please, for our champions. I'm going to wrap up very quickly here. I think the key word is interconnection, how everything is interconnected. All the different sectors, all the different communities, geographies, etc. We can only move fast if we do it all together. It has to be a collaborative effort with a very holistic view and vision indeed. Thank you very much once again to all our champions here for sharing their thoughts with us this morning. Thank you. So we're going to have a second and very short conversation that will explore what makes scale possible, the enabling environment, policy, incentives, and finance for scaling land stewardship. So please join me in welcoming Claire Casco-Cook, who's Director for Policy Advocacy and Member Mobilization at WBCSD, that's the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And a warm round of applause there again, ladies and gentlemen, please. And Tanya Haverman, who's founder at Cloud Mondial, that's an investment advisory company that mobilizes capital for the sustainable management of natural resources. Welcome to both of you. I'm going to join you here and give you a microphone to open the conversation. Even though we're going to start with Claire, actually. Because we would like to find out what an enabling policy environment needed to scale business investment in sustainable land looks like, and how WBCSD works with companies and businesses to support this.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor, and it's so nice to also see many familiar faces, and it's wonderful as WBCSD to also see our members here speaking and being active, like Bayer, Olam, EY, and many others. And thank you for UNCCD and the hosts for bringing us together. My name is Claire. I actually lead now partnerships at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We're a nonprofit global business organization headquartered in Geneva, but with offices around the world, and very, very active in this space. So that's kind of just to bring a little bit about why I'm here. What I also wanted to mention, particular, the reason for UNCCD being such a key convener on this area of land, and we discussed it earlier in a side meeting, is because land is kind of this core area that cuts across all three Rio conventions. It connects food, it connects water, it connects nature, climate. So land is a core priority, also for business, and increasingly so. And we see it as important for business, especially because it helps protect against physical risks. And we saw the topic of insurance already being raised. Also because of the cost of inaction, which we also discussed. And we see a growing business case. Companies have recognized this, and they have taken action, such as the Action Agenda on Regenerative Landscapes, which we launched at COP28. And we have been, also to briefly answer your question on the enabling policy environment, but why it's so essential. It's a coherent kind of alignment, being able to anticipate, especially in today's rapidly evolving, complex world. It is crucial to have a little bit more predictability, as complex as it is, to help attract investment, mitigate risk for producers, and ensuring the long-term adoption of regenerative practices, because we need that long-term approach. So this helps include, and what needs to be done is harmonizing regulations, incentives, partnerships, and research. Public-private collaboration is key, and I'm really happy to see this mentioned so strongly here, and also examples of this. And what we want to do at WBCSD, we want to help our members and work collectively to drive a unified business voice to shape key policy debates that then enable local, regional, and global action. I can talk much more about this, but I think this is
absolutely.
enough.
But thank you very much for that. I think the key word there again is harmonization. Thank you very much. Very, very quickly, Claire, we all want COP17 to be a success here, of course. So how can UNCCD and the Champions Council work together to ensure it becomes this watershed moment and driving this enabling environment we've been talking about?
I think something that already needs to happen is exactly with what's happening here. It is about public-private collaboration. What does this actually entail? It often can entail facilitating dialogue and bringing people together and building trust. And I think that facilitation role is a key area in the trust building area. And then really being able to co-design and co-shape solutions, listening and providing input, listening to different voices. And I think bringing different stakeholders into the room. We heard about, Olam just mentioned, both large-scale farmers, small-scale farmers. I think those diverse stakeholders, it takes time, but it's key. And we want systemic change. So we really are thinking about large-scale models, but we often need to start small and then scale. And by no means, this meeting here is not small, but we can test, we can experiment, and then build it up more. But I think public-private collaboration can have many forms. It can be on the ground, working with farmers. And I used to work for a large ag company, so there are very specific work of what can be done, but it can also be on the larger systemic, strategic level, facilitating these discussions and bringing people together. And let's see what comes out of it.
Thank you very much, Claire. Thank you. Tanya, now, we're going to talk about money, capital, of course. Sorry. So tell us, what are the opportunities for getting the needed investments into resilient land and water management, and what role can the private and public sector play, according to you?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here, and also great to see that Mongolia is taking over the leadership on this. I mean, there has already been leadership in Mongolia on financing some of these topics. You have a leading financial institution, which is Hashbank, which has already been doing financing programs around resilience, pastoralist financing systems. And I also really appreciated the comments that you made around the mining sector, because increasingly we see that land is actually impacted not just by the traditional sectors like agriculture, but also increasingly like energy, demand for SAF, as well as also mining in West Africa, where we work a lot in both wet and arid East Africa. We are seeing huge and devastating pressures from gold mining, artisanal gold mining. So I think being able to bring in some of those other institutions and sectors into this very much needed discussion is really important. And I think linked to that is just the idea of actually putting different institutions that can take different parts of the risk of enabling capital together in a very sort of intentional way. And we've actually executed on that. So I founded Clare Mondiale. We're an investment advisory firm. We both work with large corporates on putting together financing structures. So we're actually working on transaction in the US Midwest, where land degradation is also an issue, to actually have a financing structure where a large food and beverage company is working with a local bank to increase the fiscal space that that bank has, because by regulations, they're not allowed to extend more credit to farmers, even though they would like to. So this is actually a win-win situation. To developing new financing solutions, which is like the Food Securities Fund, for example, where we're using innovative financing to extend much-needed pre-harvest working capital financing in places from Burkina Faso to Honduras. And we really see that there is an opportunity to expand that. We're also excited about new programs that are coming up. For example, the World Bank and IFC Group's AgriConnect, which is also looking to bring in, for example, the MEGA guarantees into a more comprehensive way. So we've worked a lot in blended finance. We think there's an opportunity both to use blended finance to make it more investable by investors into structures, for example, the new EU securitization rules, as well as also on a local level to bring money into projects.
Thank you very much. A follow-up very quickly, the role of blended finance mechanisms to support all this. Can you touch upon that very quickly for us?
Yeah, so we've been working on blended finance for probably about a decade, and we've seen their evolution over that period of time. Blended finance is a very useful tool, but it has to be used carefully. So obviously everyone knows that development assistance is becoming scarce and scarcer as we speak. At the same time, we do see increasing interest from institutional investors to invest in financing solutions that make sense and are willing to kind of explore a wider range of funding structures. And they're also regulation is really important to by actually enabling access to the capital markets. And I think, in the last, I would say 3 years, there have been notable successes, including actually seeded by the UNCCD around using different types of capital stacks, different types of de-risking, and we're exciting also by some of the initiatives that we expect to be announced this year coming up from some large family offices and foundations in terms of being willing to support, insurance coverage, to mezzanine tranches and funds, to providing first loss capital, technical assistance, and so forth. So we do see that blended finance will have an increasing role in the next few years.
Many thanks for your very valuable insights here this morning, Claire and Tanya. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. We're going to move on very quickly to the rest of our program. Thank you for your understanding. Be expeditive here this morning, but we have to be efficient, haven't we? So, next, it's our absolute pleasure to welcome the Deputy Minister of Environment of Mongolia, Mr. Muhtamir Badbayar, on stage for some brief reflections and a call to action, hopefully and almost certainly ahead of COP17. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. She's wrapping up really fast. And well, I understand we are very behind the schedule, but so let me try to make it really quick. So, first of all, Excellencies and the colleagues from UNCCD, Dr. Yasmin, Dr. Sama, and partners, champions of business for land councils. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to giving us the opportunity to serve for the UNCCD and presidency of COP17 upcoming August in 26. So I was actually gonna give a speech on really specific topic, but everybody was discussing about and whatever I was gonna say is I'm totally agree that environmental issue needs to be generated to be economical base. As long as businesses try to make the profit, on the other hand, we have to extend our lifetime, extending the restoring the land. Well, everyone understands the importance of the land, which is connects to every single detail of businesses and public, private sectors, and everything. So we have to deeply understand how important the land is. And Bimba has mentioned that Mongolia has a bigger land, and where we offered the opportunities to extend your businesses. And I would like to invite everyone here in the room come to Mongolia next August. And I'm pretty sure that most of you haven't paid a visit to Mongolia before. And it is interesting country. And we have a heritage, lot of historical heritage, culture, and the most of the agricultural outputs on the livestock beside mining. And it is honored to host the presidency of COP17, and we'll try to make you comfortable and to have the important forums to discuss about this, the importance of the land. So welcome everyone. I invite you everyone to the Mongolian COP17. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. We wish you much success indeed for COP17. We're going to have closing remarks by Dr. Fouad now. Thank you so very much. Very quick.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you very much. I really learned a lot in this very small time, hearing from our champions, hearing from the policy enablers, and much more important is to close that two things here. And thank you very much, Dr. Osama, for giving us those figures. And I'll quote him, before it goes on the press release, because he gave me a quote now that I will spell over in the room, that yes, we have few council members, but every business is a land champion. Okay? This is not my quote, this is his quote. So just to be fair. Thank you very much, Minister Batbaya, for that kind support that you're giving to us at the UNCCD and for inviting everyone to be here. To close this, and with all what we've heard, the diversity, the business sector, the geographical location, the point of view of the policy enablers and how can we fill the gaps and overcome the challenges. The last thing I'd like to close with is that we are all here. And we are doing this, each within their own environment, for the people that we all serve, and for the children, and for our future generation. Because one day we will be all accountable whether we were really keeping that promise and that gift that we took from God and left it really nice and neat and decent and productive for our children or grandchildren, or we were greedy that we took from the right of our grandchildren. I know we will all do it to Ulaanbaatar and beyond, and thank you all very much, and thank you. Ciao.
Many thanks, Dr. Fouad. Thank you very much for your closing remarks here. So, Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's it, I guess. That's a wrap. Thank you very much for joining us here this morning. I think it's important to emphasize the fact that today it's more than a council that was launched. It's a signal that land is strategic infrastructure. So we wish you much success in your endeavors in Davos. Once again, thank you for joining us here this morning for this very important launch. Thank you. Can we have a group picture with the champions, of course, not with everyone in the room?